Ahead this half hour, keeping people protected who report crimes. We're going to walk you through a new proposal to encourage more folks to cooperate with investigations by keeping them safe, people like witnesses and even those who call 911. Plus, now that January is in the rearview mirror, we answer your questions about the unusually snowy and cold beginning to the year that we had right here in western New York. We'll also look ahead to another big storm arriving tomorrow. And 2 days to the Winter Olympics. You'll meet another local athlete heading to Beijing, and we break down the rules of the game for the fastest of the winter sports. Thanks for being with us, everybody. First up on the town hall today, with the growing concern over the increase in violent crime, there is a new plan on the table at the state capitol in Albany to encourage more crime victims and witnesses to come forward, namely by protecting their identities to reduce the risk of retaliation. How would this work, and what's the reaction to this proposal? Channel 2's Ron Plants has been digging through this bill that has now been proposed. And Ron, I know you also talked with folks on both sides of the criminal justice system. What have you learned?
Well, Michael, first off, State Senator Jeremy Cooney, who represents part of the city of Rochester, actually brought this up as a proposed amendment to the criminal procedure law as it regards legal discovery, basically sharing information between prosecutors and defense attorneys on cases, especially homicides in this case. Currently, the state can only keep confidential the names of victims and witnesses in sex trafficking cases, especially involving children, and then criminal conspiracy cases. But this proposed measure would add homicide cases to that protected identity list for witnesses, victims who survived with wounds, and 911 callers. And prosecutors who say hardly anyone really wants to come forward for various reasons, again, including fears of retaliation, welcome this proposed change.
The number one reason why our homicide solvability rating is like at maybe 30% this year and last year. Our solvability rating for non-fatal shootings is probably less than that, in the 20%, if not less. The main reason is because people are not coming forward.
All right, Ron, so that is the prosecutor's perspective. You would assume that, defense attorneys who are on the other side would push back against something like this. You think of this idea that a suspect has the right to confront his or her accusers in court. So how does that kind of balance out?
Yeah, actually, we did reach out to a prominent defense attorney on that point. That would be Barry Covert, who we speak to a lot here as a legal analyst. He says this is in part perhaps a response to the 2020 Bail Reform Act here in the state and overall changes in criminal case methods here in New York State, and that until that 2020 law went into effect, defense attorneys were, in his opinion, handcuffed in many ways, sometimes not getting important information like grand jury testimony and witness statements until sometimes right before the actual trial, and that could needlessly keep their clients in jail. But now, since the changes, he can accept some adjustments. He points out that judges are very familiar and understand with these protective orders what they can really do in terms of how they work with the defense attorneys on these situations. So he does feel that they can kind of live with this. As he puts it, it's kind of a tweak with this situation. And again, we'll have to see if this is approved by lawmakers and signed by Governor Hochul in regards to the 2020 bail reform law. But again, many people calling for answers to the violence issue, Michael. Remains to be seen what happens here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And there remain questions as well, Ron, as to whether or not there are going to be any changes at all to the bail reform law. I know a lot of people are calling for that, but there's also then been pushback from the other side. Would it take, addressing that bigger picture in order for something like this to squeak in there, or is this something maybe standalone that could go through?
Well, again, I have to point out, this is just Barry Covert's legal opinion here. But with his reasoning, he says that witness identity protections have been found elsewhere in the systems, and it even works at the federal court system. So he feels it could work in the state system as well, Michael.
As you say, coming from a defense attorney, so
Yes.
I think that says a lot. Ron Plants reporting live for us tonight. Ron, thank you.